price points is huge. And this is usually why, like, if anybody knows me, like, I'm trying to be objective here. I'm trying to give people the information, the value that I don't think I received when I got into shooting. So yeah, I think Modlite's they're overpriced with this handheld thing, because I didn't want to pay out to buy a Modlite handheld light, but I also, now that I'm in the business and in the industry of doing this stuff, like, you have to pay out and try things out. And if it doesn't work well, now you know.
Let me ask you this. Like, if it was a rifle mounted light only, if they only marketed it as a rifle mounted light and it was just going to go on there, would you think it was overpriced?
That's a good question, because 3 of us had the connection issues doing low light training 2 weeks ago. And that was with the tail cap. So I would say that's 100% a tail cap issue, but that goes to what I've always criticized Modlite about. Like, how is the ergonomics? How is the ease of use, and how durable is it? Like, who's creating this? Is this just some nerd that knows a lot about lights, or is this somebody who's out there training all the time? Because as I told you earlier today, that I just had a meeting with Gunco, and we talked about some improvements on the trigger that we want to make. Because guess what? I use that thing every time I shoot. Anytime I'm shooting a bullet, I'm using one of my triggers to make sure that I get rounds downrange and, some reps on those triggers, right? So my question is Modlite actually in-house having people test these things and give them feedback, or are they like sending out these lights to people? You know what I mean? Because the rifle light itself works fine, but the tail cap issue, 3 of us out of 4 of us ran Modlites, and one person actually just stopped shooting with us because he was like, look, I can't get this thing to work. And how expensive are these lights in comparison to everything else? I'm pretty sure these stay the most expensive light.
Yeah, it's a valid point. It is a very, very expensive light. And there are the competitors out there are trying to come in a little bit less than what they're doing. I don't think you could charge any more than they're charging right now. They went straight to market with, we're going to charge as much as we possibly can and see what happens. And people bought it because it was unequivocally the most powerful light out there. So again, going back, I
still think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're going to mount it to your rifle, like that, there's something to be said for that, right? It's a completely different application, and, lumens, candela, very, very important in those situations for obvious reasons. But again, speaking to the durability piece, how long has it been out there, and how long has it really been utilized in the dark? Because doing low light training is sort of tough to do unless you have access to property. And number one, you have access to property or range. Number two, that you're going out there and actually using it or doing it, and you're taking tons and tons of reps. How much feedback have they really been provided? That being Modlite or whoever for that matter. I don't, aside from Modlite, and are they just cherry picking the reviews or the things that they get back, or we're just 2 dudes just going out and training? And
how are you supposed to know as your average person who's not in the industry?
Yeah, you don't.
So from what I've collected, just as a consumer, let's say here, I'm going to name like GBRS Group and all their content just on the outside. Just from what I see, they started running Modlites, as far as I know, when I started following them heavy, right? And these guys are dev group. These guys are like the top tier trainers.
How long ago was this?
I think all the way up until like this last month, right. I've been paying attention.
No. When did you start? When did you start like following them?
I think I've followed them since like the beginning of GBRS Group. Okay. I think I've seen them through like working with somebody else on a CQV.
Okay, so it's been a couple of years.
A year and a half. I'd say about a year for me.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So anyways, as far as I know, I could be wrong here, but I think I've seen them have Modlites on their sling videos, their CQB videos, because they're big on keeping the tail cap instead of having a pressure pad. Mm-hmm. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what I'm seeing here. And I've noticed recently that like they don't have Modlites on anymore. They're using, I believe, the SureFire, which I think is what most people in the military use anyway. And from the outside looking in, my first thought is either they don't have a deal with Modlite and they have a deal with SureFire, or they had a bad experience with Modlite and now they can't consciously.
Well, we won't know until we ask them.
Yeah, we won't know until we ask them. But I'm just speaking purely from a consumer here, right? And honestly, probably I will. I probably will ask them, honestly. But my point is like when you see things like that and you see some of like the most respected people and the big names, like for me, like GBRS Group, T-Rex Arms, like Ronin Tactics. Those are massive names and people that I like. What do they run? Just because you see that they run it doesn't mean that
we've covered this before.
It doesn't mean it's the end all be all. But when they give you rationale behind what they're doing, then it kind of becomes more believable. And it's a gray area there. My point is that like SureFire seems to be like the most consistent across the board. So I usually try to like push them, and they're big on like American made stuff. They're not perfect, obviously, but I mean,
nobody is. And again, there's no one light for every situation, but they've been around a long time, and they have a ton of different products.
Yeah. And the reason why I bring that up is because not only have they been around for a long time, but if we're talking outside the waistband, that's when you have to really start thinking about, do I want a SureFire? Do I want a Modlite? Do I want a Cloud Defense, which is a new up and coming company? Do I want a Streamlight? I pretty much always tell people, look, dude, if you're not willing to invest in training or knowledge and gear, just go buy yourself a $50 Streamlight and do us all a favor.
Practice.
Right?
Yeah. Stop it. Yeah. Stop talking about all this shit. Like none of that's going to matter if you don't train.
Yeah. But if you're talking about Modlite, like fucking, Modlite, then like, okay, go train and then give us data so we can go forward with that.